I think the key is whether it improves productivity or worsens productivity. It's how that's done. For example, if you introduce technologies, you get rid of a bureaucracy that stands in the way of progress. I'm now painting the good one. And so it's like a company that all of a sudden have a bureaucracy, doesn't have waste, and has technologically advances, and it produces things more efficiently. That is good for the company. The country as a whole did that, well, that would be good. But it still creates a situation where what are you going to do with the people who are useless or nearly useless? So it hasn't answered that question. If it is not working that way and not effectively done, it'll be disruptive without those benefits. I would say productivity per person, broad-based productivity, is the most important. They are emphasizing productivity. I'm not so sure that they're emphasizing broad-based productivity, because broad-based productivity means that each person is productive, and then that productivity gives them their income. So the broad-based part of it is of a concern to me, but productivity is a good thing, and so it's worth their try. You have to deal with that population. The question is there a way? But before we get to a way, I would say you must find a way, because if you make a lot of useless people, you're going to have the same kind of problems and a worse problem with all of those useful people. Not good for them, and they're going to be disruptive to the society. I'm not an expert on jobs programs and how that works, and I'm not a big believer that the government is the best, most creative ways of, government efficiency is an oxymoron. Would you like your whole government to work the way the Department of Motor Vehicles works? So how you do that is being neglected. And young people, yes, that's being neglected. How you do that at a young age. And I'm saying you have to teach them two things. You have to educate them the skills. We have measures in the world called like PISA scores. Where is the United States for the average school? We have 60% of the population has below a sixth grade reading level. You have to improve that education. And you also, not just in the formal education, you have to teach civility, how people can come out and work well together to be productive. And those are the areas that are being neglected, in my opinion. Well, you're talking about two things: where you get the money from, and then what you do with the money. If that money that you get from tariffs is used to raise productivity better than taxes, that's a good thing. What do you do with the money? The question still remains, though, what is the plan to do with those people? Let's say artificial intelligence will replace a lot of people. People get upset about the Chinese imports, and the Chinese imports are less impactful in jobs than technology, and they're also giving you a cheaper product that has some benefit because you can more cost effectively get it. When you have technology replacing jobs, that can make the items more cost effective, but it also can disrupt jobs. And so we still come back to your question: what is the plan for those people of any age, later or earlier? What is the plan to do with them? And who is going to execute that plan? That's what's missing. And there are no easy answers. Does the government do it? Well, the government is not very efficient in doing things. So we have those consequences as a result of this, and we just have to realize that. That would be the type of thing that if I was saying a Manhattan Project, it would be that kind of examination of what is the plan for those people. I think there's the government, people leaving, and then there's the vast majority of the population who are being disrupted for other reasons, such as technology having efficiencies. In both cases, you're going to have technologies increasingly replacing people. Now, you're going to break the world into two types, by and large. There's about 3 million people who account for most of the benefits that of the new technologies, the unicorns and such. It's a wonderful environment. If you go to the great American schools that are the rarefied environments where you're among the brightest and you learn and you come out and you get jobs, or a lot of the people, half of the people are immigrants who are very talented from different countries doing amazing technology work and creating unicorns and so on. And then it's a country of 333 million people. So how we broaden that, there will be those who invent the technologies and do very well, and then there will be a lot of people who will be disrupted. And they're not going to be able to just go from a government job in which they were operating a certain way into the workforce. Okay, what's my background? Government bureaucrat. Now I'm, a 52-year-old government bureaucrat looking for a job. I don't think that there's going to be, a great job market for those people. And that's the government part. And then there's the others who will also be disrupted. There needs to be attention paid to this. Unfortunately, the government is not great at this because also the private sector wants efficient people, not people who are like that by and large. And the government is not good at disconnecting themselves with the companies. They can train a lot of people. You could spend a whole career being trained in this program and never end up being productive. So that's a problem. Each values comes from the particular parents that have the biggest influence on those values. And we are living in a society in which there's competitiveness also determines the resources that you're living in. And we have a society in which, by the Constitution, education, formal education, is a state issue, and then it comes down to a tax district issue within the state. So what you have is a situation where if you don't have the parents and you're in that environment, for example, I live in Greenwich, Connecticut, and the public school system, I think the average per student expenditure is $28,000. In Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is 10 minutes up the road, and they don't have money, the average expenditure is something like $14,000 in school. And then they need more money because it's not just the amount for education, but if you buy them a computer, you have to buy them a computer. The school doesn't provide that. So some get computers and some don't get computers. And they're living in an environment where there's drugs and shooting and all of those things. And that's a more traumatic environment. So reforming that is more difficult and expensive. So who are your parents? How did they raise you? Do you have the education and the civility? Do you have those resources? These are the fundamentals and the basics. Your question was, why don't we do that? Why don't we learn? Well, that parent who is now maybe drug addicted at 14 or 15 years old becomes the parent. What kind of parent are they going to be? So you have this spiral that worsens. My wife, who deals with this issue, sponsored an examination in the state of Connecticut and looked at, who are they and what are the costs? And it was BCG. She hired BCG to do the study, and it did this examination. And it showed that besides this human tragedy, as I say, in the state of Connecticut, 22% of the high school students have either dropped out of high school or are failing classes with absentee rates of greater than 25%. In this state, which is always number 1, 2, or 3 richest state in the country, okay, because of that, that has created almost a plague that has then caused crime and incarceration. They're spending $700 million a year on incarceration. Okay, so it's been shown that it is so cost effective that if you didn't even care for the people and you were just saying, what is it costing the society? It's costing the society a huge amount of money that if you would deal with those things, not only would you have a fairer society for education and so on, but you'd save money. And you have a more civil environment so that in that environment, there's greater safety, a better community, people want to be there. So that's a reality. So I'm just trying to answer your question. If your parent was one of those parents, you'd be raised that way.